Chapter 3. The Great Race Begins. East meets West. The challenge was split into two formidable commands. From the west, starting in Carson City, Nevada, and building eastward across the alkali deserts and salt flats, was the California State Telegraph Company. Their commander was James Gamble, a tough, experienced surveyor who knew the unforgiving landscape like the back of his hand. They faced the immediate, crippling difficulty of hauling all materials, poles, wire, glass insulators, from the Pacific coast over the massive Sierra Nevada mountains. From the east, pushing west from Omaha, Nebraska, and across the vast plains, was the Pacific Telegraph Company, led by Edward Creighton. Creighton was a titan of logistics, a man who had already proven his mettle by stringing lines across the seemingly endless state of Missouri. His challenge was different. Not necessarily the terrain, but the sheer distance over which every single piece of wood and copper had to be transported. The deadline was set for October 31st, 1861. A mere 111 days to complete 2,000 miles of line. It was a race against time, geography, and the looming shadow of the American Civil War. The material marvel, wood, wire, and glass. To the onlookers, the construction effort looked like a biblical migration. Creighton's Eastern Division alone required 150,000 sturdy wooden poles, stripped of bark, dried, and hauled by ox teams. Many had to come from forests hundreds of miles away, caught by lumberjacks and dragged out by heavy draft animals. 2,000 miles of copper wire weighing hundreds of tons, coiled and transported in massive spools. 250,000 glass insulators, delicate and crucial to prevent the electric current from leaking into the poles in the ground. Every single one had to survive the bone-jarring journey across the prairie. Amazing fact, the Eastern crew was essentially building a 2,000-mile-long fence through a land without fences, carrying all the materials with them. In the West, Gamble faced a different logistical nightmare. To cross the Utah and Nevada deserts, he used a unique material, juniper wood. Juniper poles, though often gnarled and short, were the only local timber available. In the most desolate stretches, where no wood could be found, his crews were forced to use stone cairns, mounds of rock with a simple piece of wood wedged in to hold the wire. The line itself was a testament to improvisation and sheer grit. Chapter 5. The Line Riders and the Wild Frontier. The laborers who built the line were a motley, dedicated crew. They were known as liners, a mix of former miners, restless farmhands, European immigrants seeking work, and even Pony Express riders who knew the territory. They were paid relatively well, but they earned every penny. The pole diggers. The first wave of men were the pole diggers. They had to dig a hole deep enough and wide enough to secure a heavy pole every 80 to 100 yards. They worked in all weather, their hands blistered, the muscles burning. In the soft river valleys, the work was grueling. In the rocky, frozen ground of the mountains, it was brutal. The pole erectors and wire stringers. Next came the erectors, who manhandled the heavy poles upright, their voices coordinating a chorus of grunts and shouts as they used ropes and sheer strength to set the wooden giants in place. Finally, the wire stringers completed the impossible. Working from wagons piled high with copper coils, they raced along the freshly planted poles. One man held the spool, slowly uncoiling the wire. Others climbed the poles, deftly attaching the glass insulators, and then securing the wire tautly to the cross arms. They had to keep pace with the diggers, often covering 5 to 10 miles a day in perfect coordination. The dangers of the wild. The environment itself was the most relentless enemy. Blizzards and flash floods, A sudden torrent could wash away weeks of labor in a river crossing. A mountain blizzard could halt construction for days, risking frostbite and starvation. The animals, not just bears and wolves, but enormous herds of bison that could flatten miles wide in a single thunder stampede. Crews quickly learned that waiting for a bison herd to pass to take hours, so they worked around the clock, even under the constant threat of being run over. Native American encounters. For many Plains tribes, the telegraph was a clear violation of treaties and sacred land. It was nicknamed the Whispering Spirit Wire. Crews had to be escorted by armed guards, sometimes U.S. soldiers, sometimes armed civilians, to protect them. The native resistance was fierce, and sections of the line were cut repeatedly. The severed wire was prized for making tools and adornments, and the wooden poles made excellent firewood in the treeless plains. Key figure, Edward Creighton's diplomacy. Creighton, a man known for his fairness, often preferred negotiation over combat. He made agreements with several tribal chiefs, offering them gifts of beef and flour in exchange for safe passage and a promise not to cut the mine. This diplomacy proved to be just as effective as the soldiers' rifles in keeping the construction moving forward. Chapter 6. The Young Operator. The line was only as good as the messages it carried, and those messages needed interpreters, the telegraph operators. The entire system depended on the skill of these unsung heroes, often teenagers and young women, who could listen to the electric clicks and translate them into English words. Meet Frank Latham, a fictionalized young operator based on the many boys who lived and worked in the lonely relay stations. Frank is 17 years old, a slight build, but with an ear that could pick up the faintest dot or gash. He's stationed in a solitary, isolated relay post deep in what is now Wyoming territory. The relay station was a crucial step in the line. The electric signal weakened or were distanced, and a human operator had to quickly receive the message, decode it, and then retransmit it with a fresh jolt of electricity down the next leg. Frank and hundreds like him became the unseen minds that kept America connected. They were a network of isolated, essential nodes, tied together by a fragile, humming copper thread. Through their work, the distant, silent world of the West was suddenly given a voice that spoke in flashes of light. The race continued, driven by the tireless work of the liners and the solitary vigilance of the young operators.